Hello everyone, welcome to our very first Google Hangout. I'm very new to this whole social media thing, so bear with me. This is going to be a lot of fun, but a lot of learning at the same time. I am here today with my colleague Nila Merchant to answer questions that you might have to learn more about the impact that AKFC has in East Africa specifically on this. My name is Shakeel Bharmal. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Aga Khan Foundation Canada, and I'd love to introduce my colleague Nila Merchant, and I'll come back and tell you how things are going to work today. Nila.
Thanks, Shakeel. So my name is Nila Merchant. I'm a program officer here at Aga Khan Foundation Canada. I primarily work at managing health projects here in Asia and Africa. And today I'm really excited to share with you all some of my experiences working over the last 3 years in health projects. In particular, I'd like to share stories from my recent trip to East Africa, to Tanzania and Mozambique, where we have some health projects. In addition to health projects in Tanzania and Mozambique, AKFC also has programming in Kenya and Uganda in East Africa that we can talk about today.
Great. Thank you, Nila.
My responsibilities include, amongst a few other things, the running of our major events across the country, including World Partnership Walk and World Partnership Golf, and these are events that we have every year to engage Canadians, to raise awareness and raise funds to help us through our projects around the world in 14 countries, but also in East Africa. And 40,000 Canadians get involved every year. We have between 5,000 and 7,000 supporters that sign on to help us fundraise and raise money from 30,000 people. It's quite an amazing event, and our volunteers are the ones that actually make it happen, so plenty of thanks to them. So we're going to be here for the next 60 or so minutes just to take questions from you. And so if you want to engage, you want to ask some questions, and you're on Google Hangout. If you're on Google Hangout, on the top of your screen, you'll see a grid, a small box made up of a number of other small boxes. If you click on that, there'll be an option to ask a question, so you can type in your question. And if you're on Twitter, you can tweet a question to hashtag #AskAKFC. You can probably see that on the bottom of the screen. And we'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible. We may not get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can, and those we can't, we'll address offline. So why don't we start? Do we have any questions up yet? Yeah, so we have a question. The first question here I have is, can you tell us why it's important for you to go to East Africa and see AKFC's projects? That's a great question. I was fortunate enough to go to 2 countries, Mozambique and Tanzania, in 2013, where I got to see a number of projects. And I won't get into the details of the projects I saw because Nila actually runs some of those programs. But I will tell you that it really, really did change my perspective. To actually meet the people and look into their eyes and see their hopes and dreams and aspirations that are actually becoming a reality through improved education and healthcare for themselves and their children, it really is a life-changing experience, and it just recommits you to the cause of helping them and fulfilling yourself as a global citizen. But Neelam, why don't you tell us a little bit about going to see the projects in East Africa? I mean, you go there quite a bit.
Sure, thanks, Shakeel. So as I was mentioning earlier, I went to East Africa recently at the end of 2014, and I was able to visit 2 of the projects that I work on. One of them is in Tanzania, in multiple regions and districts of Tanzania, and the other one is in northern Mozambique. I think it's essential to learn more about the types of work that we're doing here so that you can see what you're a part of. So some of the things that I've seen that have touched me, and some of the things that I've seen over the last few years that I think are great for other people to see include obviously health projects, because those are the projects that I work on primarily. So one of the examples that I can talk to you about today is in Tanzania, where we have a project that's working in over 30 health facilities. And the first time I went to Tanzania with AKFC was in 2012, which was about 3 years ago, and I saw some of the clinics in some of the regions that we're working in. These clinics were run down, staff weren't very motivated, they hadn't had training in a little while, they were understaffed, they didn't have as many resources, and it just wasn't, they just weren't fantastic facilities. They weren't facilities that I would have wanted to go to. And recently when I went back, I was actually able to go back and visit some of those same health facilities and see the changes that have occurred since the start of that program in 2012 until close to the end of it in 2014. And I was able to see a lot of change. These staff have had lots of training, so they've had training. They're getting better supervision, getting mentorship. They've gotten some new equipment. The facilities have been renovated. So it's just small things like a fresh coat of paint, some new equipment, some equipment that's working, that's functional. They have improved standards and procedures that are in place. Some of them have actually gotten more staff that are in place. They've improved the way their systems work, and you're really starting to see an impact. You're starting to see health workers that are enjoying their jobs, and everyone knows that when you're happier and you're enjoying your job and you're feeling more productive, that actually helps you do a better job, and that is really visible in the patients and the beneficiaries that we've seen. So a lot of the beneficiaries, the people that are using these health facilities, are happier to go to them. They enjoy going to receive antenatal care. They enjoy going there to receive their care during pregnancy, after pregnancy, and early childhood. So these are some of the things that I think if you were able to go to East Africa, you could see and learn more about some of the changes that are happening over time.
Nila, when I was
a village just outside of Morogoro, which is several hours outside of the main city, Dar es Salaam, in Tanzania. We went to visit a regional hospital where AKF programs were helping the regional hospital actually improve their capabilities and capacities. We met physicians, we met doctors, we saw mothers bringing their children in. But then we got in a bus and we drove into the most remote area. I mean, we drove for probably an hour, dirt roads, on the side of a valley, and then as we turned a corner and we got out of the bus, we saw a sea of women and children all gathered together, and there was a stage set up, and there was an MC there, and there was all these nurses, and there was these different stations set up, and I learned that that many of these women, I'd say there were hundreds there, had walked for hours to come to this outreach health clinic to get a combination of treatment, vaccinations, advice, counseling, moral support to help them through their pregnancy and the early years of their child's life. But it was so inspiring to see how all these people together, and it was such a celebratory environment. They were happy to be there, and it made me think, we take it so much for granted here in Canada. If you have a cold, or you are, your wife is expecting, and you basically make an appointment, and you drive down to the doctor, and you walk in and you get your advice. It's not that easy here. I mean, these are not accessible areas. So, to organize something like this, where all these people can come together to get the advice over a few days, it's a pretty amazing thing to see. And they were very appreciative. In fact, I got a chance to talk to the people there, and I was able to tell them that their brothers and sisters in Canada really care a lot, and are really happy that they're coming to get health care, and they're so pleased to support these programs to make sure that they themselves, the mothers, and their children have a long, healthy life.
I'm actually really glad you brought up that experience that you had. I have another experience that we've had in actually all of the regions that we work at in Tanzania are these health camps or health fairs where communities come together. It's actually these events that you were talking about are organized by the community, local community leaders, village members. They all volunteer their time. They come together and they put together a fair. And some of the ones that I've seen also include things like young youth and adolescents from the community that are actually singing and dancing and putting on plays and theater. They put on events, and there's music, there's food. It's actually a really fun event, and this is one of the unique aspects of this project, where we can bring people together, and in addition to coming together and seeing your friends, your neighbors, your peers, you can also have an opportunity to access health services right there where you are. So even if you're not pregnant, even if you're not sick, you will still come to this event. And in addition to learning, in addition to kind of accessing health services that you might need, you actually get access to health information. So you can learn about things like family planning, things about early childhood nutrition, nutrition during adolescent, nutrition during pregnancy, and things that you may not necessarily have gone to seek, but you get to have this opportunity to learn a little bit more.
So it's not really just about
in healthcare, it's about helping them change their behavior, helping them know what's possible, what's available, and educating them to live a better, healthier life. In fact, you know, you talk about the programs. I was just looking the other day and looking at the numbers. You know this, but some of the people in the Hangout might not realize that over the last few years, with the help of the World Partnership Walk and all the generous supporters, you know, we've trained over 1,500 health workers, and we've provided access to health care to over 36,000 people. It's pretty amazing. Do you have any other questions? I think there's other questions coming in. While we're waiting for the next question, Neelam, can you tell me a little bit about how you came to AKFC? How did you choose doing this for your profession?
Sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I'm actually a clinical nurse by training, and then I did a master's in public health. And I started to realize at a young age when I was in university doing my nursing education, I started to realize that my passion was in healthcare, and I do enjoy healthcare, and I think that to me is what drives me to improve people's health and quality of life. But I realized that I wanted to work on prevention. I wanted to work on improving not on treating sick people, but on preventing them from getting sick. And so I decided to study public health. And while I was just throughout my life experiences and throughout my education and academic career, I was able to have opportunities to travel overseas. And seeing the Canadian healthcare system as a nurse, I actually was able to also see the healthcare system in different countries, particularly in Kenya and in Uganda. And I was able to realize some of the disparities that exist. And so during my master's degree, I decided to focus on global health as an opportunity to ensure that we can try to add a bit of equality here and try to improve the quality of life of people. So, you know, instead of health facilities that are run down in other countries where they don't have access to enough medication or they don't have access to quality, skilled, trained professionals, let's improve that. And because, you know, in a place like Canada, you can just drive down the road and access health services. We have roads, we have ambulances, we have things that other countries don't always have, and so I wanted to try to work on improving some of those things. And so I started working at AKFC about 3 years ago, and it's been great. It's been a great opportunity for me to learn a little bit more and start to contribute.
That's great. You know, we talk a little bit about what we have and what they don't have. The one that's also interesting to note that there's a lot we have in common. You know, as you meet people out there, Neelam, as I'm sure you've experienced this, you meet people out there, you meet children, you meet mothers, you meet fathers. At the end of the day, they're the same as we are. They have the same hopes, aspirations, and dreams, and they have the same desire and actual, you know, their own mental ability to actually lift themselves out of poverty. They just sometimes need a little bit of a help from us, and I think it's our responsibility as fellow members of the human race to kind of provide that little bit of a hand up to help people. Oh, and we have another question that's just come in. I'll read the question out, question right now is maybe I'm going to give this to you, Neelam. What are some projects under development? Why don't you talk a little bit about what's up and coming with some of the projects that you know about?
Sure. Thanks, Shakeel. So we have, as I was mentioning, we have a number of projects that I recently visited in Tanzania and in Mozambique, and actually both of these projects are coming to an end in 2015. So we are getting ready to start to develop some new programming to continue these efforts and to continue to build on some of these successes. So our projects, the new projects that we're trying to develop are focusing in the health sector, focused on maternal, newborn, and child health, which is a key issue, and there's a lot of there's been a lot of work that's been done over the last 5 years since the start of our first round of projects, and then there's still a lot left to do. And so we want to try to build on some of the lessons that we've learned, use some of the best practices that we've obtained, and to kind of continue this momentum to improve access to health services, improve the quality of health services. We can only target certain areas, and so we want to target more areas. We could only target certain areas through our first round of projects, and so we'd like to expand our scope and broaden the interventions that we've done.
Well, that's a good point that you're making, Neelam, is that with the last programs that we've had in place that just wrapped up, I mean, beneficiaries are something like 1.5 million people, and that's an amazing number of people that have been helped. And sometimes people ask me, saying, "You've already helped so many people. Why do we need to continue to support?" Well, the truth is, 1.5 million is just a small number when you compare to all the other areas and all the other people that need to be helped. And the wonderful thing is that over our years of experience helping those 1.5 million and the other millions of people that we've helped over the years is that we've just gotten better, smarter at knowing what interventions work. And in fact now we are just that much more effective. But in order to do that impact in those new areas, those new villages and new parts of the country, we need continuous support, funding, and help to make those things happen. But it would be a shame to take all the expertise we develop and not be able to put those into place because we haven't raised enough funds to do that. So any other questions? Any other questions? I think there's another part of this question here. How will the money raised? Oh, actually, I'm getting some technical support from a member of our team here. We're supported, by the way, in the background by Shabana and Dara, who are running our production room, so they're helping us through this. Great question. How does the money raised through the walk help move projects forward? Yeah, let me explain that a little bit, because it's good to understand how the fundraising works and how it helps. So what happens is every year Canadians come together for the walk, they raise money, and they raise money through our World Partnership Golf Tournaments. And we raise about $8 million a year between the two. And so what happens is we take that money and we co-invest with other partners. A major partner of ours is the Government of Canada through the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development. And we combine our funds, and in fact, the multiplication is tremendous. For every dollar that we have, typically it's multiplied by about 4.5 times because we co-invest with the government. And so the money raised every year from the walk goes in to fund these new programs and projects. And over the years, we've raised $90 million, which has gone to fund an amazing amount of work and the multiple of that. But the money raised this year will be going to support some of the programs that Neelam's described around healthcare, taking healthcare to new villages, training new healthcare workers, providing nutrition programs for young children. But one thing we haven't talked about is our work in strengthening the school system in East Africa. East Africa, despite having high enrollment rates in school, the challenge from helping with materials in schools, helping to construct schools, helping to restructure the curriculums, helping to train teachers and make sure that they're operating at world-class standards. In Tanzania, in 2009, only 41% of students in the Lindi region of Tanzania passed the standardized primary school graduation exam. And in Uganda, 1/3 of school children drop out in grade 1. So what we're doing is recognizing that to be effective in the classrooms and to actually help these children be successful, the teachers need really high-quality training and professional development opportunities. And so we're investing in programs to strengthen the school systems in Kenya, in Tanzania, and in Uganda, providing world-class university education to teachers, continuing education. And these programs will benefit 188,000 people in East Africa, students, teachers, and other key players in the education system. So the money raised from the walk, the money raised in Canada by AKF, will go to contribute to that program as well. And what else? There's another question here. What's the impact to civil society made by AKF Canada in East Africa over the last few years? I think the best way to answer this question is actually to describe an example of civil society. And one form of civil society is what's called village development organizations. And when I traveled to Mozambique a year and a half ago, I saw this firsthand. So a village development organization is a group of people in a community that come together, supported by professionals and volunteers from AKF, to map out and chart a course to prioritize specific issues that they're facing in their village and to make a plan to overcome those issues and challenges. So one example would be improving the productivity of agriculture in villages outside, with villages in the northern area of Mozambique in Cabo Delgado. So you'll get a collection of farmers that will come together, and volunteers and trained professionals will teach them practices on how to improve the output of their crops. Simple principles to improve the productivity of their soil, to plant the right crop, to identify what the market needs are, and to price their products appropriately. So that would be an example of a village development organization that comes together to improve the outcome of the work that the individual people in the community do, and to help each other through structured programs that they build themselves with a little bit of help from Aga Khan Foundation Canada. Do you have another example, Neelam, of a village development organization in another context?
Sure. So I think in addition to village development organizations, there's also, in the health sector, we work with village health committees or community health committees. So I can give you an example of a community health committee that I met in Mozambique, in northern Mozambique, where they can actually come together. They focus on health rather than just development of their society in general or their community in general. But they've actually been able to mobilize resources to make change. So there was a community in northern Mozambique that didn't have a health post. So just like a small health clinic, they didn't have that in their community, and they really wanted one. And so they were able to come together, work together, and actually come up with the resources, advocate to the local government, advocate to their local council, and bring together sufficient resources to get a health post in their community. So they were able to actually make that change. And this village health committee, the community health committee, was trained by AKF Mozambique just to build their capacity in just like thinking through some of the issues and identifying strategies for solutions. But they were able to mobilize the solution on their own, and they were able to bring change to their community in a very positive way.
That's good. That's good. I have another question here. Can you tell me about some of the beneficiaries you support? Any stories that stand out? I have a story, but Neelam, do you have a story of anybody specific that you've kind of met that's been impacted?
Sure, I can tell my story, and then maybe you can tell everybody about one of your stories. Sure. So a story that I actually think is really nice and really great to share with people is, again, in northern Mozambique. In one of our projects, we have a nutrition component, which is where we work with communities, sort of with pregnant women, young women with young families, new mothers, and then also just the community at large. And we want to improve the nutritional status of their community, because in northern Mozambique there is a lot of, sorry, I'm shuffling through paper, but I do have a statistic around here. There is often people don't have enough food to eat, but often even if they have enough food to eat, they don't have the adequate knowledge to identify the right foods to eat. So if you think back to how you know what you should be eating for dinner, how do you know that you're not supposed to have ice cream for dinner? Someone has has educated you on that. Someone has shared that kind of information with you. We have things like Canada's Food Guide. We have all these resources and materials that are available to us. But often in some communities that are a little bit more rural, that may not have access to media, they may not have access to the internet, they may not have access to all of this information. And so there's different approaches to bring that information. And so one approach that we have in Mozambique is nutrition groups. So these nutrition groups are comprised of, I think, 8 to 12 members of the community that come together. They get trained on locally available products that have high nutritional value, that are seasonal. So you learn about what are some nutritious foods you can eat during the dry season, and what are some nutritious foods that you can eat during the rainy season, and how can you plan for the dry season, how can you plan for the different seasons. So in addition to learning about farming techniques and how you can grow these adequate foods, specifically within the nutrition groups, they come together, they bring communities together, and they do nutrition demonstrations. So in last summer when I was in Mozambique, I was actually able to go to a nutrition demonstration. And so the nutrition group came together and they created this porridge, and it was made out of millet and some bananas and some locally available food products that were in season at that time. And so they put it together, and I got to try it, and it was actually quite delicious. And so as I was talking to the community members, I was asking them, what have you learned from this nutrition group? What's different now than what you did a couple of years ago before the nutrition group was formed? And so they said, now we know, we always knew that we could create this porridge, but we didn't know exactly how to prepare it. So now we know how to prepare it better. We also know that you can eat this porridge during pregnancy, and not just when you're sick or when you think that you need increased food, but that you can eat it all the time. You can feed it to your young children all the time, and it helps them grow and develop. And the most interesting thing that I heard was that now that pregnant women are taking this porridge, our babies are born fatter. And I didn't quite understand what that meant. How are your babies born fatter? Tell me more. I wanted to understand. And they said, well, they used to come out quite small, and now the babies are a little bit bigger. And as I probed a little bit further and asked some of my colleagues, it turned out that babies weren't low birth weight anymore. So as most of you may know, a baby that is born that is low birth weight has a lot of potential for risk later on in life. They're more prone to infections, they don't grow as well, they have more prone to breathing respiratory illnesses, and they're just more prone to adverse outcomes in later on in life. And so something as simple as training a small group of people to learn about what foods you can eat that are seasonal, that are locally available, that you can grow, learning how to grow them, how to prepare these porridges, these mixtures, and how to feed it to your children, and how to eat it yourself during pregnancy and during adolescence, you're actually having a huge impact on people later on in life. So your babies are born at a higher birth weight and have better health outcomes.
That's great. That's a great one. Well, I could tell the story. I don't know if we have another question that should be answered first, but maybe I can tell a story that might answer some other questions that might come up. My stories are all about individual people that I meet, because that's what really sticks out for me. One of the things we did, we went to another rural area, and in Mozambique it was, and we pulled into this village, and there was this bamboo structure that had come together. I thought we were walking in to see an example of this structure and how it was built by the community. And as we walked in, there was a group of about maybe 8 people in there, range of ages. There was men and women. Maybe the oldest person was about 42, and the youngest was probably 18. And they were walking us through this little small structure, and they were describing how the structure was built from sustainable materials in the local area. They were talking about how the community came together to build it. But that really wasn't the story. As you went through the place, you saw a corner of it that was set up to be a preschool, an early childhood education center, and we saw some wonderful books and materials and toys that you would see in like a Montessori program here or a kindergarten program here. And then we went outside in the back, and there was these 2 structures that were basically sustainable toilets that had been created and built by the community. And then there was, around the other side, there was a garden that had been put together. And so then we came back into this construct, this little structure, and they told us about how all this came to be. And I asked the question. Is that where did the idea come from to do all of this? And there was a lady that was sitting on the floor, and you wouldn't have known it, but she was the leader of this group. And she was sitting on the floor at everybody's feet, and she said, in Portuguese, it was translated back to me, she said that she woke up one morning and she had a vision, a hope for a future for her village and for her neighbors and her neighbors' children, where all the young children got to go to school and got to continue their education. She saw a village where everybody had the dignity of being able to go to the bathroom properly with privacy. She saw a place where there wasn't a struggle to create healthy diets in the home. There wasn't a fear that they wouldn't have enough food to eat during a drought. And based on that, she brought a group of people together from the community, and it was a mix of people, a range of them. And from there, they first planned out, and they said, well, in order to have a plan for the future, we have to have a place to bring our community together. And so they created this structure. And then they said, well, if we want to help have our children be educated, we have to start small. And they decided they wanted to train 2 of the villagers to become teachers, and we helped them train those teachers. And then they decided that they wanted to have some dignity for going to the bathroom. And so they built all this. But the point was that it was this quiet woman that you wouldn't have known. And in fact, later I found out that she actually had polio, and she actually moved around on a bicycle powered by her hands. But there are leaders in these villages, in these communities, that you would never imagine that help mobilize their neighbors and take hold of their future. And it was just so inspiring to me that this woman knew what she needed to do. She just needed a little bit of help to do it. And her friends and neighbors were there to support her. And the pride in their eyes as they talked about their plans for their future, it was quite heartwarming. It was hard not to shed a tear in that moment. So that was something that really touched me and carried me. And the best part about it is that we helped make it happen. Here in this country, we helped make it happen. I mean, I've been fortunate enough in my career. In my previous job, I worked in the corporate world, and I always felt that, I was taught that one of the main reasons to ever get educated in life is to give back knowledge, to give back resources to those people that need it. And I was feeling like I wasn't getting the chance to do that in my previous role. But I get to do that here at AKFC. Well, the beautiful thing about being a supporter with AKFC, getting involved with the organization, with the walk, with the golf tournament, is that it doesn't matter what you do for a living, you can actually play a part in changing people's lives. And there's millions of people like this lady Maria who changed the course of the future for her village. And we can have a hand in doing that. It's just a wonderful feeling. So we have another question here. Can you talk about AKFC's techniques used to create sustainable solutions to poverty rather than a needs-based approach? Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, I think. I mean, the key part of sustainable solutions is creating a system where the people that are being impacted take ownership of the problem, and they take ownership of the solution to it. That drives sustainability. First is that desire, that hope to make it happen. The second part that drives it is actually giving them the tools, the resources, and the education to make a plan and execute that plan. To me, that's what drives sustainability. It's all around educating one person to help them do something differently, to help them do something better. That person will impact their children, will help their neighbors, will train the other villagers to actually make an impact in the long term. I mean, I met a gentleman who attended an AKFC program. From there, he got an idea to start a business, and then once he was successful in that business, he didn't say, "Okay, I'm successful. Let me just relax and enjoy the money I'm making." He took his extra time and he joined the village organization, and he started training his neighbors on becoming better business people, on becoming a better farmer. It's that human spirit and that fuel to continually help each other that makes some of our programs sustainable. There's other aspects of sustainability. Neelam, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think it's also the idea of involving the community that you're working with from the start of the program. So in a lot of the projects that we work on, we actually involve the community in the planning phases of the project. So we think about, what is the change that you want to see, and how can we work together to get there? So it's not a matter of just putting in inputs. It's a matter of working together to achieve a common goal. So identifying what that common goal is, and then working together to get there. And so I'm just trying to think of an example where I can tell you that. So but let me come back on that one. But I do think if there's that component of working together from the beginning of the project right up until the end. And this is, you know, working with communities, working with local government, working with all the local organizations to achieve common goals.
You know, the other aspect of sustainability comes from the idea of being holistic in our approach. You know, you can't go in and just build a school and think that's going to solve a problem. You can't just go in and you know, create a hospital or create one program to improve health. You really have to take a holistic approach, which means the approach that we take here at AKFC and AKF Worldwide is to address both livelihoods and income, make sure that people have the means to make money. Let's make sure they have the means to generate their own income to buy food or to grow their own food. Let's make sure we address healthcare and so that people are healthy, and let's make sure we address education so that there's a path to early education all the way through higher education. Let's help to address the systematic issues. Help form civil society organizations and village development organizations. Let's help governments become more effective. So it's really multi-pronged, and it's working on all of those levers to make development actually last and make it a long-term effort. So that's the other aspect of sustainability. So we do have another questions here. What programs do you have underway that target early childhood development, specifically for children under 2 years of age? Well, I'll speak to one example. Neil, I don't know if you have any other examples, but I talked a little bit about that Little Village organization that created this early childhood education center. There's many of these throughout the world, throughout the areas that we work, but you know, we'll have programs where we'll create an early childhood education center with the local community. Will help train teachers and help bring materials to that community, and they will actually have a very, very strong, very professional early childhood education program for children, and that actually helps children improve the chances of success in the older years, primary school, and then they obviously move on to that. But I talked a little bit about the program around strengthening school systems in East Africa. I mean, yes, it's about training teachers, it's about making classrooms more effective, but it's also about addressing education at a very early age and giving those kids a really good start in life.
And we also, I'll just jump in, we also add, we also incorporate components of early childhood development in some of our health programs in East Africa. So, for example, in Mozambique, a lot of our activities are sort of multi-sectoral in nature, but when we have a health program, we'll incorporate principles of early childhood development, stimulation. So in Mozambique, a lot of the activities that we do focus on working with community health workers. So to date, in northern Mozambique, under one of our projects, we've trained over 700 community health workers. So these are community volunteers that actually go and do home visits, and in their spare time, in addition to whatever their other income generating activities, they go and do community health activities. So they provide education to community members, and so when they talk about as part of some of their health lectures and home visits and training that they do in the community, they also include early childhood development. They include principles around stimulation and improved childcare practices.
Good. That's great. So we have another question here. It's a good question here. With so many impoverished regions in the world to choose from, how does AKFC decide which projects to focus on? That's a really good question. So there's two dimensions of that. I mean, how do you choose what regions you work in, and then what projects you work on? There's a couple of different answers as well. So if you look at the regions of the world where we work, one aspect of the choice of regions of the work is really the history of the Aga Khan Development Network. If you look at the history of the development network, you know, going back hundreds of years in East Africa and in Asia, that's where, you know, we've had healthcare facilities, hospitals, schools. We've had significant infrastructure in place for over 100 years. And so that is the base of strength for us. And so there are many successful organizations in the world that work all over the world. But for us, we work where we think we can be most successful and most effective and most impactful. And Asia and Africa are the parts of the world where we actually have had the most history, the most knowledge, the most understanding of the way the countries, the people, the populations work, and the infrastructure. So that's how we choose to work in that part of the world. The other is, you talked about how do you choose what areas of need. I was looking at a map the other day, and I think I might actually have it. I'm going to try to show it on camera. I'm going to do a little experiment here. I'm going to show it up on camera. Hopefully you can see it. So here's a map of the world that I was looking at, right? Normal map of the world that you could find in any atlas. Well, here's what that map would look like if you weighted it based on the proportion of all child deaths between the age of 1 to 5. Here's what the map looks like then. Can you see that? So what you see is an engorged, a swollen Africa and a swollen Asia. So if you look at where in the world there's significant need, at least in the area of maternal newborn child health, that's where there's the greatest need for that aspect of the work. So that's how we choose, that's one example of how we might choose an area or a project, a program. So we do a lot of work in maternal newborn child health, and that is one example of why we chose that area, because that's an opportunity to not only make an impact, but also to impact future generations of people in the world. But the other areas, it goes back to our approach to development and the holistic approach. We look for programs that will address multiple parts of the development challenge: healthcare, education, rural development, livelihoods, and civil society. So our programs always fall in those kind of themes and those categories. And then geographically, our base of strength is in Asia and Africa. Anything to add, Nila, to that?
No, but I think actually, I think Shabana has a map that she can show, which shows all of the different places that we work in.
Oh, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Is it up? There it is. Maybe you can put it on full screen or a slideshow, so you can see the whole thing. Yeah, so you can see that we have pockets in Africa that we work in, West Africa. We work in countries like Burkina Faso, Congo, Ivory Coast, Mali, and on the Eastern Africa, we work in a number of countries there. Again, back to our basic strength. You also see a big part of Asia highlighted. Central Asia primarily we're working in. South Asia, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and you also see Canada highlighted. And there's a reason for that, because our work in Canada and the US, for that matter, is really around public engagement. So our role in Canada is to engage the intellect, the resources, the talent of Canadians into the work of poverty alleviation in Asia and Africa. And so that's why the North America is highlighted. I hope that answers the question. If there's any other questions queued up. So I think this might be a question that we've answered in a different way. Neelan, what do you think? What is it that makes our global development work so effective?
I guess just sort of going back to some of the things that we've already talked about, I think one of the most unique aspects of our work is the long-term approach that we take. So when the AKDN, when the Aga Khan Development Network establishes presence in a community, in a country, we generally stay there for quite a while. We try to establish permanent institutions such as schools, hospitals, clinics, and sort of different institutions that will actually last that will last for a long time and bring just sort of to improve the capacity in those communities, to improve access to education, access to health services. So we do work for a long time, and we continue to stay there for a long time and continue to contribute to those communities. So I think that actually helps, kind of going back to that question of how do you ensure your work is sustainable, how do you work with, so kind of establishing local institutions that are part of the local community that will stay for a long time.
Yeah. So ability to stay long term. I think it's just this recognition that we have that there's no quick fixes here, right? And everybody knows that poverty is a very complex problem with a number of root causes, but the primary root cause is this idea of hope and opportunity. And at the end of the day, to actually create long-term development, you provide resources, tools, and capabilities, but you have to enable people to imagine that their hopes and aspirations can be fulfilled. So creating that idea of hope is a very long-term and complex challenge, and I think why we're effective is we go to that root cause. We actually work to create hope. We don't just build something or create something or provide food. We provide the capabilities and resources for people to do that for themselves over the long term. So I agree with you there. Another question here. Have you seen any unexpected changes or outcomes from the programs in East Africa? Nila, over to you, since you go there so often.
I think that's a really great question. I would say that I think one of the unexpected changes, particularly in the example that I'll talk about is in Tanzania, it's just the momentum that we've seen. So, if we are able to, let me just gather my thoughts a little. So we are, one of the regions that we work in Tanzania is Dodoma region, which is kind of, it's in the middle of Tanzania, and we work within health clinics, and we're working with lots of government health facilities, public health facilities. We're working with different communities to improve access to quality health services. And part of the work that we do is we work with local government, so local sort of district level, regional level, as well as country level health councils and kind of like the health authorities. We work with them, and we're working to improve their capacity to deliver quality health services. And so one of the things that I think is really great to see is the momentum that's come out of it. So, for example, in Dodoma, in one of the regions, the last, as of, I believe, September of 2014, there was close to 90 new healthcare workers that were posted in that region because gaps were seen. So you're actually able to mobilize more resources. In addition to what the project was doing, this was actually over and above what the project was doing. We were able to see more healthcare workers go into those communities, go into those health facilities to improve the quality of services, to provide more quality health services. So I think it's the sort of like the multiplier effect, right? We're starting to see more impact, more change that occurs over time.
That's good. That's a good one. There's another story that comes to mind, unexpected outcomes. When I was in Tanzania, I was traveling with a few of our volunteers, and one of them was talking to a mother that had just found out that she was expecting. And, coming from Canada, when you find out somebody's expecting, you're very happy and you congratulate them. And so, this volunteer, she actually did that. She was so happy and she congratulated the expectant mother. But the expression on the mother's face was she was very stone-faced, very stoic. And so, she was disturbed by this. The volunteer was disturbed by this. So she went to one of the AKF employees and said, why did I get this? Why didn't I get a reaction? Why was she happy? And she said, well, the truth is that, for many years, when a woman finds out she's pregnant, it's actually not a celebratory thing, because there's a chance, and there's fear that there's a chance that either them or their baby will not survive. There's a chance that the baby will survive, but they won't have the means to feed them properly. So it's actually, unfortunately, something that we take for granted here as a celebratory thing is not taken for granted as celebratory. But then when I described that health clinic that I went to in that rural village, it was a completely different perspective. because these women there were clearly excited, were clearly happy, were singing songs, were supportive of each other, and many of them were expecting, and many of them had young children. So, you know, in the span, I would say, of just a few years, there's been a mindset shift in the way they view expecting a baby and the creation of life because of the projects and work that we were doing. So that's pretty amazing to actually feel that. I still get chills thinking about it, but that's a very powerful example of an unexpected outcome. So, and I think this is a repeat question, but it's actually a good repeat question because it gives me an opportunity to talk about something I've been waiting to talk about a little bit. The question again is, why is it so important for you to visit East Africa to see the projects, AKF projects, projects supported by the World Partnership Walk and World Partnership Golf? Why is it so important to see them in action? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's just wonderful and heartwarming that we have thousands of Canadians here that are raising funds to support this work, having not seen the work themselves, but to actually see it in action is life-changing. To actually be able to see the impact of the programs that are funded will change not only your life, but will also allow you to come back and share with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues and family the importance of caring about lives on the other side of the world, and they also allow you to communicate that actual international development done the right way actually works. It actually changes lives. I mean, I've met people in East Africa that have said, 5 years ago I could not feed my children. And I had 8 children, and they could not go to school. And I met this gentleman, Alberta, who said, now all my children are in school. The oldest 2 have graduated, and they've now started their own businesses, and they're on to a successful life, and their children are on to a successful life. And I'm now able to help my neighbors do the same thing as I've done for my family. I mean, the chance to actually get to meet that individual, I'll never forget that. I mean, that is what drives me now to do what I do. And we have a great opportunity with the World Partnership Walk. We have a program in place, a referral program in place, that if you sign up as an ambassador or a team captain for the World Partnership Walk, and you get 5 people that have never participated in the walk before to join you, either on your team or you just refer them, that you will get a chance to go to East Africa for 7 days and do a trip like the one that I went on to see these projects and meet some people. And it is truly life-changing, and I do hope that many people take advantage of it. If you want more information, you can go to worldpartnershipwalk.com to learn about that, but this is a chance not to be missed. It's actually very easy to qualify for the contest. You know, I haven't met anybody in my life that doesn't have at least 5 friends. Get involved, sign up, do this, and the odds are pretty good right now. So jump on board and get involved and win a chance to go and see some of these programs in action. Hope that answers the question. Any new next questions coming up? This is definitely one for Neelam. Neelam, what are some emerging challenges for health? You can answer that part. If you can answer the second part, great. What are some emerging challenges for health and education in East Africa? And how can we meet them?
Sure. So I'll give it, I guess, three big challenges. I'll say that there's the 3 big challenges for healthcare, and I think education as well, are access, quality, and utilization. So when we talk about access, it's about accessing health services. It's about getting to the health services. So this is referring to things like roads, transportation, the existence of clinics in communities where you can walk to or take a vehicle to or just be able to get to them, roads to enable you to access these health facilities. And then also getting into thinking about that the health services are adequately staffed, they have the equipment that you need, that they can actually provide the quality of care. So the healthcare workers are adequately trained, can identify what the issue is that you're coming in for, and can provide adequate treatment, and that they have the resources and support that they need to provide the care that the person is seeking, but then also that they can refer you to the higher level of care should you need it. And then the last big challenge that I would say is utilization. So knowing when to seek care, knowing how to get to health services, knowing what are the different reasons that you should seek health services, knowing some of the questions that you should ask a healthcare worker. So just thinking through those three big scopes, or those three big challenges, I think those are the big ones that we should think about. And just looking at the second part of the question, how can we meet some of those challenges? I think it's through projects and through working with, like kind of what we've been talking about, the different approaches to sustainable development, working with local communities, working with local government, identifying the priorities, looking at different guidelines and best practices and recommendations, and actually working together to implement these. So projects such as the ones that we've been discussing today, where you have something like the health fair that we talked about at the start of this hangout session. You know, you bring community members together in an area that may not have access to health services, and you have healthcare workers that are present at these camps, these health fairs. There's opportunities for people to learn about health information. There's opportunities for them to seek health services, whether they're sick, whether they're not sick. They have an opportunity to access this type of information, learn about it. Should they become sick, they know where they can go. They learn about the quality of services that are available, and the people that are there, the healthcare workers that are there, are adequately trained and equipped to provide the care that's necessary.
Great. We're in the last few minutes, so we'll see if we can take one more question. But before we do that, I know we have a lot of our volunteers, our fundraisers, our supporters on the Google Hangout today, and I just want to take a moment to thank you all for the hard work and the passion and energy you put in to do this work. We know that it doesn't happen without you. In fact, all of the success of the projects that we've talked about here, and the history that AKFC's had of successful impact in East Africa and other parts of the world where we work, is basically because of you. We wouldn't have access to the funds that we get from our other institutional donors like the Government of Canada if we didn't have the investment of time and energy coming from you. And so we've been successful. But I'd like to say that we're actually a victim of our own success because of the money you've raised for us and the confidence that it's given us to take on the projects that we have taken on. We've been taking on ever more complex and large programs of impact. So that's great. It's fantastic when we're able to do that. But because it's increased our confidence, it's increased our ambition, and it's increased the eyes on AKFC, we're actually getting more support from the government saying, you know, do more. Let's do more. Let's help more lives. Let's help millions and millions of more people. In order to do that, we need your help. We need you not only to support us by helping us raise the same amount of money we've raised in the past, we actually need to raise more. So as successful and as positive as everything we've talked about is, the need is great. And I don't know, Neil, if you can add a perspective on that from your eyes, the first-hand view of the need out there.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think I would just echo everything that you've said, and that the support that we receive from the World Partnership Walk is instrumental in the kind of work that we do. I think you know, one of the things that I've seen in particularly in Tanzania is that you know, we've seen a decline in the number of children that are dying under the age of 5. You know, it's gone down from 180,000 children per year in 1990 down to 98,000 in 2012, which is fantastic. We're doing really, really well. We're starting to see a lot of change. Things are moving along, but that still means that there are 98,000 children that are dying every single year before they reach the age of 5. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and so we want to continue doing these kinds of work, continue to implement best practices, continue to build on the successes that we've had. And so this is where everybody here comes in, and this is where we can all work together to reach success.
Excellent, thank you. We hope you enjoyed this Google Hangout. Please do tweet us. I think we'll use the same hashtag AskAKFC, if you want to share some comments about this experience. If you have any ideas for the future, we'd love to do more of them if there's a desire out there. But in closing, please do take what you've learned, share with others. If you haven't already, sign up for World Partnership Walk at worldpartnershipwalk.com. If you work at a company and you've got employees there that you can get to form a corporate team, please form that corporate team. It's easy to do. And one more plug for that referral contest. If you want to actually see some of the things that we've talked about firsthand, go to worldpartnershipwalk.com and check out that referral contest. You'll see how easy it is to participate. If you know somebody that would like to do it, let them know. We also have a really neat special feature at specialfeature.worldpartnershipwalk.com. It's a great articles and stories and videos of young Canadians that have helped participate in some of the projects that we've done and the work that we're doing and have made an impact, and a little bit of them sharing on what it's done for them and their life. So check that out as well, and just get more and more engaged. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.